You're at a dinner party. Someone casually mentions they've maxed out their 401k for 12 years straight. Another talks about a rental property they bought last summer. A third brings up a brokerage account that crossed a threshold you didn't even know existed. Meanwhile, you're sitting there trying to remember if you even have an active retirement account, and whether the $8,000 in it even counts as real savings. You smile politely. You nod. You say something vague like that's great, reaching for your wine glass. But inside, you feel your stomach do that heavy, familiar drop. It sinks 3 inches and just stays there. That night, you lie in bed staring at the ceiling, completely sleepless. You replay the conversation over and over, wondering if everyone else got the money memo while you somehow slept through the lesson. The anxious questions spiral. Should I have bought a home 5 years ago? Why didn't anyone teach me to invest in my 20s? Is it too late? Will I be working until I'm 75? Here is the secret no one at that dinner party will ever admit: half of them are exaggerating, if not outright lying. The guy boasting about his rental property didn't mention it's been vacant for 3 months and is bleeding him dry. The woman maxing her 401k has $40,000 in secret credit card debt she's hiding from her family. And the other half? They are drowning in the exact same financial anxiety you are. They have simply learned to project confidence because that is what we are told adults do. That anxious knot in your stomach exists because society handed you a checklist for success, but forgot to mention it was written in 1985 when houses cost $89,000 and a single income could easily support a family of 4. The benchmarks you are using to measure your worth are fundamentally outdated and broken. They were designed for an economic landscape that simply no longer exists. Yet, we still internalize them. We still feel like absolute failures when we hit 40 without reaching these invisible, arbitrary milestones. So today, let's do something uncomfortable. I'm going to show you the real financial benchmarks for 40-year-olds based on actual, modern data. Some of these numbers might bring you instant relief. Others might genuinely freak you out. But more importantly, I'm going to give you a clear, realistic roadmap to catch up even if you are starting today from absolute zero. Here is the twist that might surprise you. Late starters often end up in a far stronger position than early starters who lost their way. There is a clean mathematical reason for this, driven by a concept I call contribution density, which we will break down in a moment. Once you understand how this works, you will realize that your 40s can actually be the most powerful, wealth-building decade of your entire life. I'm Wyatt, and I've spent years researching this financial reality. If this perspective helps you, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button. Let's start by tackling the classic uncomfortable truth that traditional financial planners love to throw around. According to standard conventional wisdom, by age 40, you should have saved exactly 3 times your annual salary for retirement. If you make $80,000 a year, that means you should have $240,000 tucked away. When they say it so casually, it sounds entirely reasonable. But actual reality is brutally different. According to the Federal Reserve's latest survey of consumer finances, the median retirement savings for Americans aged 35 to 44 is actually just about $45,000. Let that sink in for a second, because it is incredibly important. Median means that half of the population in this prime age bracket has less than $45,000 saved for their future. That is nowhere near 3 times their salary. For most, it represents barely 3 months of living expenses. So, if you are sitting there with $30,000, $60,000, or $100,000 saved, you are actually doing significantly better than the vast majority of your peers. The unrealistic benchmarks making you feel like a failure were designed by financial institutions that profit directly from your anxiety. They want you to feel left behind so you buy their funds, hire their advisors, and pay their steep management fees. However, pointing this out does not mean you should settle for being average. Average in today's economy means barely scraping by in retirement. It means working until age 67 and praying that Social Security doesn't collapse before you do. The goal here isn't to beat your neighbors or win a status game. The goal is to build genuine financial peace of mind. Those are 2 entirely different targets. Let's look at what realistic financial benchmarks actually look like today, grounded in the economic reality most of us live in. The first major benchmark is retirement savings. A highly attainable, yet still incredibly meaningful target is having 1.5 to 2 times your annual salary saved by age 40. If your salary is $70,000, you should target roughly $105,000 to $140,000 in your retirement portfolio. Reaching this range proves you are on a solid path, especially as you enter your 40s and 50s. The decades when your professional earning power naturally peaks. Let me explain why hitting this modified number is more powerful than you might think. If you are 40 years old with $120,000 invested, even if you never contribute another single dollar, that nest egg will grow to roughly $780,000 by age 65, assuming a standard 8% average market return. You won't be private island wealthy, but you will have a real safety net. Now, if you couple that existing base with consistent contributions throughout your 40s and 50s, you are looking at a genuinely comfortable, worry-free retirement. The second key benchmark is your emergency fund. You should have 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses parked in a high-yield savings account. By essential expenses, I mean the bare necessities: rent or mortgage, utilities, food, basic insurance, and essential transportation. For the average household, this translates to keeping $12,000 to $25,000 in a highly liquid account that you can access within 24 hours. Let's clarify a critical boundary that many people get wrong. Your emergency fund is not a vacation fund, a new car down payment, or a cash reserve you dip into whenever you want to avoid using a credit card for a luxury. This money exists solely as a financial shield to protect you when life throws a massive wrench into your plans. We are talking about sudden job losses, medical emergencies, or major, non-negotiable home repairs. That is the true purpose of this capital. The third major benchmark is debt management. By age 40, you should have completely eliminated all high-interest consumer debt. Credit cards charging 20% or more interest must be paid down to zero. Student loans should either be resolved, forgiven, or on a highly structured, aggressive payoff path. Personal loans and retail financing plans need to be entirely gone. The only debts remaining on your balance sheet should be a mortgage and potentially a reasonable, low-interest auto loan, ideally under 6%. Let me be completely direct with you: if you are 40 and still carrying a rolling credit card balance month after month, this is a financial emergency. It is a 5-alarm fire that must be put out before you focus on anything else. Credit card interest compounds against you with the exact same mathematical ferocity that investment returns compound for you. Every single month you carry that high-interest debt, you are swimming directly upstream against a current specifically engineered by banks to keep you trapped in place. Our fourth benchmark is your income trajectory. Your salary at age 40 should represent a healthy step up from where you started. Data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that peak earning years typically fall between ages 45 and 54. By age 40, you should ideally be earning at least 30% more in real, inflation-adjusted terms than you were at age 30. If your income has stagnated, it indicates a career plateau that requires active attention. This isn't about climbing a corporate ladder for status or ego, it is simple, cold mathematics. Your ability to build substantial wealth is ultimately capped by your earning power. Think of it this way: someone earning $50,000 who diligently saves 20% of their income is putting away $10,000 a year. Meanwhile, someone earning $100,000 who saves that same 20% is putting away $20,000 a year. Over a 25-year timeline, that difference compounds into hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, let's talk about what happens if you look at these benchmarks and realize you are falling short on a few, or maybe even all of them. Your immediate physiological instinct is going to be panic. You might feel like you wasted your 30s and that catching up is a hopeless endeavor. You might even feel a strange, defeating urge to throw in the towel, accept a difficult retirement, and assume there is nothing you can do. But this is precisely where the mathematical reality of starting in your 40s comes into play. Catching up in your 40s is actually much more achievable than trying to build wealth from scratch in your early 20s. There are several highly practical, interconnected reasons why this is true, and they work heavily in your favor as a mature adult. First, your earning potential is significantly higher. The average 40-year-old earns far more than a 25-year-old just starting out. This means you have much more raw capital to direct toward wealth building. While a 25-year-old might struggle to scrape together $300 a month to invest, an established 40-year-old can often find a way to allocate $1,500 or $2,000 a month. That difference in contribution density is massive. Second, your lifestyle expenses have likely stabilized. You are likely done with the phase of buying cheap furniture from scratch every time you move apartments, and your major young adult purchases are behind you. The endless consumer acquisition treadmill naturally begins to slow down at this stage of life if you allow it to. Third, you finally possess the maturity and life experience to truly understand how money works. The vast majority of investors in their 20s buy assets without really understanding the mechanics. They chase hype, pick random mutual funds because the names sound impressive, and panic sell at the absolute worst times during market corrections. Many even cash out their employer retirement plans early when changing jobs because they want immediate cash. By 40, you have lived through enough economic cycles to possess emotional resilience. You have watched markets plunge and inevitably recover. You understand on a deep level that volatility is simply the admission fee for long-term, wealth-building market returns. To show you how this works in practice, let me introduce you to a client we'll call Mert. His journey illustrates exactly how the catch-up game is played in one. Mert entered his 40s with just $22,000 in retirement savings, an active car payment, and around $8,000 in high-interest credit card debt. He was earning a respectable $85,000 a year, yet felt like he was barely keeping his head above water. Every single month, Mert ended up with roughly the same balance in his checking account, regardless of whether he tried to save or not. By every conventional financial metric, he was falling behind. He had spent his entire 30s in the invisible fog of lifestyle inflation. Every raise and bonus he earned quietly evaporated into a slightly nicer apartment, more frequent dining out, and increasingly expensive hobbies. He wasn't doing anything wildly reckless, he was simply living without intention. Money flowed in, money flowed right back out, and an entire decade slipped away. But over the next 7 years, Mert executed a highly structured, systematic catch-up strategy that completely transformed his net worth. He didn't win a lottery, receive an unexpected inheritance, or build a complex side business. Instead, he committed to a focused, step-by-step framework that prioritized high-impact actions. What Mert did, and what you can replicate starting today, regardless of your current account balances, comes down to a few clear phases. Phase 1 was all about stopping the financial bleeding. Mert dedicated a weekend to a ruthless audit of his monthly cash flow. He printed out 3 full months of bank and credit card statements, reviewing every single transaction with a highlighter. What he found genuinely shocked him. He was paying for multiple streaming platforms he hadn't opened in months, a premium gym membership he hadn't used in 3 quarters, and various subscription boxes that sat unopened in his closet. These small, automatic recurring charges were slowly draining his accounts. By canceling these unused services and renegotiating his fixed bills, he immediately reclaimed hundreds of dollars in monthly cash flow. In addition to trimming subscription waste, Mert took a closer look at his larger fixed expenses. He decided to refinance his auto loan, successfully lowering his interest rate from a painful 8.9% down to a much more manageable 4.2%. This single administrative move saved him an extra $100 every month without requiring him to change his car or compromise his lifestyle. Within just 30 days, Mert had freed up nearly $350 in monthly cash flow with zero real sacrifice. Simply by shining a light on the hidden financial leaks he had previously ignored. Phase 2 of his recovery plan focused entirely on debt elimination. Mert redirected every single extra dollar of his newly reclaimed cash flow straight toward his outstanding credit card balances. During this intensive phase, he paused all extra investing and kept his savings at a bare minimum $2,000 starter emergency fund. Because his credit card debt carried a guaranteed negative 20% return in the form of interest, he attacked it with absolute, single-minded focus. No traditional investment on earth could reliably beat the guaranteed return of paying off that high-interest debt. He utilized the debt avalanche method, targeting the balance with the highest interest rate first to minimize the total interest paid. While some people prefer the quick psychological wins of paying off the smallest balances first, the key is simply choosing a structured system and sticking to it relentlessly. 8 months later, Mert's credit card debt was completely gone. He now had his freed up monthly cash flow plus the money he had previously been throwing at his credit card minimums, giving him a substantial pool of capital to finally begin building real wealth. Phase 3 focused on establishing a robust emergency fund. Before diving headfirst into aggressive market investing, Mert needed a secure buffer against life's unpredictable expenses. He spent the next 4 months building his cash reserves from $2,000 up to a healthy $15,000, which covered roughly 4 months of his essential living costs. While this step might have felt like a temporary delay in his wealth-building journey, it was actually the foundation. Without an emergency fund, any sudden expense will inevitably force you back into high-interest debt, trapping you in a cycle. An emergency fund is what permanently breaks that cycle, ensuring that progress made on your debt stays permanent. Finally, Phase 4 leveraged the unique catch-up contribution advantages designed specifically for older savers. This is where being over 40 and approaching 50 becomes a major structural benefit. The IRS allows individuals to make additional tax-advantaged contributions to their retirement accounts. While standard contribution limits cap annual savings, savers aged 50 and older can contribute thousands of extra dollars on top of those limits to accelerate their retirement nesting. By utilizing these catch-up provisions, Mert was able to aggressively supercharge his compound growth curve just as his earning years peaked. His story is proof that you are never truly out of the game. It is not about where you started or the time you lost in your 20s and 30s, it is about the intentional, structured actions you take today. Your 40s are not a time to panic, they are your highest leverage wealth-building years. Focus on the system, eliminate the leaks, attack high-interest debt, and let compound interest do the rest. See you again next video.